So I'm now going to introduce our first speaker, Simon Lovestone. He's professor at the Institute of Psychiatry and Moorfields Hospital. He belongs to King's College London, and he is the director of our translational research collaboration for dementia. So Simon, over to you. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Following Dame Sally's lead, colleagues, I would like you to imagine a world. Imagine a world where researchers can access huge amounts of data to gain new insights into disease. Imagine a world where we could optimize R&D within the pharmaceutical industry, where new treatments are more effective than they currently are, and where we can reduce treatment failure by substantial amounts. Imagine a world where we can continuously model and monitor in phase 4 how effective our drugs are. And then imagine a world where all healthcare providers are prepared to share data. I want to thank my colleague Bart van der Heuser, who's from Janssen, a Johnson & Johnson company, for this slide, because this is what pharma is imagining. This is the world that the pharmaceutical industry would like to live in. And it is a world that is beginning to arrive. It's a world where I think it is true that there is increased openness between healthcare providers and stakeholders. It is a world where there is a great deal more willingness to cooperate, especially in that pre-competitive space. It's a world where we're moving much more to collaboration in London, in UK, in Europe, and wider afield. We want to use the data that Dame Sally has just talked about for patient benefit, and we're beginning to do so. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you some examples of this new world and why it's beginning to happen already. I will give you an example in Alzheimer's disease. I will show you how we're beginning to utilize our electronic medical records for research. And then I want to tell you about a program of work that is perhaps the largest collaboration in Europe in this field that will start later in this year. So the Innovative Medicines Initiative is a really interesting public-private partnership funding scheme within FP7, within Europe. These are ideas that are generated by members of the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations, pharma. They generate the ideas, and then they come together in a collaboration of pharma, together with a collaboration of academics, to pursue research goals. It's a joint undertaking between the EU and FPA companies, so each of these projects is 50% funded by each. And this started with a program called ADDNEUROMED that I was very fortunate to lead with some colleagues, which together with a predictive toxicology program was called Innovative Medicines. And this was many years ago now. We came together and we said, we all want the same thing here. We all want to deliver outputs that are better for going to be improving human health. And we know exactly what areas are critical for us, and we think we know how to do that. So can't we work collaboratively? So ADDNEUROMED set out to try and discover biomarkers, tests for Alzheimer's disease. So if you look at the graph on your right-hand side, the dotted line is the course of disease for somebody with Alzheimer's disease or many of the other dementias. People slowly declining. And the arrow that says today is where we treat people today. And as many of you will know, the compounds, the disease-modifying compounds that are being developed are failing. There was a very major trial that was announced as a failure just last week, and it's quite possible that we'll see some more. And that's probably not because these are bad drugs, but because we're giving them at the wrong time. We're giving them too late in disease. We need to give them much earlier, before people have symptoms, but when they actually have pathology. So you need to detect those people before they come to the doctor. For that, you need biomarkers. So we need to move the treatment paradigm from where it says today to where it says tomorrow. And in order to do that, you need biomarkers, and that is what ADDNEUROMED set out to do. So ADDNEUROMED was a very large collaboration across Europe. It worked very well. We did discover some biomarkers. Those are going forward through the process of qualification. However, what we discovered in that program was that there was a huge amount of data existing out there that would be colossally useful to us that we couldn't access. All of the data of ADDNEUROMED was laboriously collected by individual researchers, nurses, going to see patients and collecting that data. We want to move to where we can utilize routine clinical data. So this is how we are beginning to utilize routine clinical data in the Maudsley Hospital, which is one of the largest providers of mental health care and dementia in the UK. Many years ago, the Maudsley Hospital invented its own electronic medical records system, not dissimilar to the one that some of us would have heard about in the other sessions today from Birmingham. So this is an electronic medical records system that matches what doctors and nurses do and is used by all doctors and nurses in the trust. And we have, for many years now, been entirely paperless. We're entirely electronic NHS trust. There are now, actually, that's slightly out of date. I made this slide about a month ago, and now there are over 200,000 records, 35,000 people active at any one time. So with funding from the National Institute of Health Research, the NIHR, through our Biomedical Research Centre, we set out to see if we could liberate that data for research purposes. So we built the Case Records Information System, which enables us to bring out of that all of the structured and unstructured data within a suitable governance structure and utilize it for research. That has enabled the kind of research that ADDNEUROMED, the pilot for the Innovative Medicines Initiative, wanted to do. I can't resist giving you some data. Let me give you an example of the kinds of things we can do. The graph that you see on the right-hand side is what happens to patients today with dementia, with Alzheimer's disease at the Maudsley. And on the horizontal axis, you can see years, and the 0 is the time when drugs for dementia were introduced for an individual patient. And on the vertical axis, the MMSE score is a cognitive score. It's a score of memory. And you can see what happens to patients. They get slowly worse. At the point you give them the drug, they begin to improve a bit, and then they get slowly worse again. But at every time point, people on these drugs are about 6 months better off on drug than they are off drug. Now, if any of you have any knowledge of the trials of the dementia drugs, you'd look at that and say, well, we know that. That's what the clinical trials showed, and indeed it is. But the difference between the data that you're looking at and the clinical trials is, first, it goes for 3 years instead of 6 months of a clinical trial. Second, this is from real-world situation of real patients, not trials patients, that are sometimes very different to real-world patients. But the third difference is this is from 3,500 patient years of data. That is 7 times more than in the entire world's literature. And that's what you can do from a single hospital trust. You can get data of quality that is just outstanding and is the kind of data that NICE need when they're evaluating these drugs. So this is very powerful indeed. So we're not stopping there. What are we doing now? Well, now we want to go beyond the electronic medical record to the patient-owned medical record. So this is owned by the patient. It will have care plans on, patient-reported outcome measures, trials, recruitments. That enables us to link with all sorts of other data records that we're beginning to do. And of course, it allows us to link to biobanks for that biomarker discovery. But we're not happy about sitting in one trust. We now want to link up records across London. So, for example, there is a study based at Imperial that has looked at 30,000 people of Indian origin. We want to follow them up through the electronic medical record and discover those people that have gone on to get dementia and look for biomarkers in their blood taken many years ago. As a partnership example, we want to partner, we've begun the exploration of how we do this, with colleagues in Bangalore, that we can begin addressing issues related to risk of dementia in Indians living in London compared to Indians living in India. But why stop in London or UK? Why not link up electronic medical records and research data all over Europe? Well, that's what the European Medical Informatics Framework intends to do. This is a hugely ambitious program, which will start on the 1st of November this year, funded through the IMI program. Our ambition is to access data, and we've got the agreement to access data on over 40 million Europeans, on over 30,000 people with samples and brain scans. We want to link up this clinical and omics, genomics, proteomics, metabolomics data. We hope to be using the National Phenome Centre that you will have heard about in the last few days. And we're going to develop a secure modular platform in the cloud that respects patients' rights and privacy. So in the first two instances, the European Medical Informatics Framework will have two utilisation programmes, one in Alzheimer's disease and one in looking for predictors of metabolic consequences of diabetes. But it is the intention that this is a sustainable long-term solution for European research, and already we're beginning to think about the subsequent programmes that will be separately funded that will come after Alzheimer's disease and diabetes. So that's likely to be in risk stratification. It might be in vaccines, it might be in other disease areas. So our objectives, I won't read this out, but our objectives are to link data, to harmonise data, to resolve some of those ontology problems, to look at governance and procedures. We'll have a federated network so that people own their own data but agree to share. We will look for tools, we will develop tools that allow this kind of interoperability, and we'll establish, most importantly, a business model that means that this is a platform that is sustainable for research in Europe. It involves many partners. It's led jointly from FPIA by GlaxoSmithKline, but includes all of these companies, and we're always open to new partners joining. And these are our academic partners led by King's College London. So this is a really ambitious program, and we are open for collaboration with both industry and academic groups, not just in Europe, but all over the world. I've already given you one instance of how, even before the project started, we're looking at partnership with India, and there'll be more to come. We've got over 60 partners. It's funded to 48 million. 40 million European medical records will be included in this, and we hope that this will be a sustainable, long-term solution for better research in Europe. Thank you.